This is Monty once again from DPO Surveillance Equipment. Wiping down my car, as usual. Just finished wiping it down. And it looks like it's going to be a nice day today. And I'm feeling pretty good. More and more, or for longer periods of time, it's really interesting what happens when you separate yourself from the fiat system, pay off all your debt, have zero balance on credit cards, and have investments in this new industry, the cryptocurrency industry, which is going to basically change the world and overthrow or overturn the banks and the credit card issuers and the merchant processors and the intermediaries and the rent seekers and the bloodsuckers that keep everyone down and out. So I think that's the type of excitement, that really gets you going, really keeps you motivated, knowing that there is no creditor that's going to bug you and harass you, that you're actually just stepping out of the traditional system and not having so much involvement in that anymore, making a transition to a better system. So that's exciting, I think. And you guys really want to see what it's like also. So get rid of those credit card balances. Learn about cryptocurrencies and blockchain as much as possible. Let's see, today what's going on. Oh yeah, today we have a timely topic. This topic is so timely. A lot of you really need to hear this, really need to understand it, really need to realize the implications of what's going on. Before I get into it, I just want to say my name is Monty Henry, owner of DPO Surveillance Equipment. We run a full-service surveillance and security equipment company. We have lifetime guarantees and warranties on all the products. We have 24/7, 365 tech sales and customer support. We have the largest inventory of items that not only can you buy, but you can rent them and you can lay them away as well. In addition to all of that, we have a ton of new products that we've introduced on the website. A lot of new products, you guys, and a lot of used products for those of you who want to save money. So if you want to save money, check out the used products. They were products that were formerly rented out, and when we rent our products, we can't sell them as new anymore. So we have to discount them. And a lot of these products are actually priced to move, so you want to check that out as well. We've converted the shopping cart so that it can process Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We can process Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bcash in addition to Bitcoin. So you crypto millionaires out there, probably the only few people who have any money left, go to our shopping cart, drop some of that crypto into the shopping cart and get your favorite spy gadgets. We know you like toys like I like toys, spy toys and gadgets and stuff like that. So he who has the best toys, the most expensive toys, is the winner, I think. Jokingly, as one person said. What else we got going on? Oh yeah, we revamped the website. We redesigned the website, and it looks great, works fine. It should be very, very nice to experience it on your mobile and your iPad and your smart device as well. And we just want to emphasize as much as possible, by using cryptocurrencies, we stick our fingers in the eyes of the traditional the credit card companies, the credit card issuers, the banks, the intermediaries. All the people have been keeping us financially oppressed for so long. And believe it or not, now we don't need them. Now that we have cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, we don't need to pay exorbitant merchant fees, discount fees, service fees, batch fees, settlement fees, all these crazy fees to the credit card companies anymore. We could save all that money, $600 or $700 billion a year, in remittance fees alone. We can save $70-80 billion a year by not paying Visa and MasterCard and Discover the merchant fees, the discount fees. So there's a lot of savings that we can keep in our pockets. if you guys are willing to not support the same people who are harming you or harming the economy. Okay, believe it or not, when you step outside the United States, when you go to China, you go to Japan, you go to Australia, they're putting the brakes on the ability of the credit card companies to do the same things that they're getting away with in the United States. I don't know why the American citizens are so complacent in terms of paying the ransom that these guys are charging you, including the banks and everybody else who just raping you. You guys don't seem to know or care or mind at all. So let's get into this article, because it's really going to address this in tremendous detail. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert, if I can say that properly. This spoiler alert actually is all about workers. Those of you who get in your car automatically drives to work, and you sit down at the cubicle for 8 hours staring at the clocks, looking out the window, dreaming about how Jeff Bezos became like the richest person on the planet, and you're wondering how Bill Gates did it, and you're wondering how Mark Zuckerberg did it, and you're wondering how the people who run Google, Larry Page and his counterpart, Larry Page and his counterpart, I can't remember his name for some reason, but the guys who run Google and all of these major corporations, you're wondering how they get away with it and how they do it. Well, it ain't working 9 to 5, I'll tell you that. So let's take a look at this article and see how we can put this in proper context, and how you guys could possibly, quite possibly get off the hamster wheel once and for all. Workers strike demanding better pay and benefits while corporations use excess cash to buy back company stock. Let me repeat that again. Workers strike demanding better pay and benefits while corporations use excess cash to buy back company stock. The strengthening economy and tight labor market are giving workers more confidence to demand employer concessions through strikes. In recent weeks, unionized hotel housekeepers in Chicago, distillery workers in Kentucky, and crane operators in Seattle have all walked off the job to pressure employers for better pay and benefits. Some 31,000 teachers in Los Angeles are threatening to strike, and union members at ArcelorMittal SA and U.S. Steel Corporation have given the authority to strike if negotiations break down. With the national unemployment rate at 3.9% in August, just above an 18-year low, and skilled workers in scarce supply, union officials say they have more leverage at the bargaining table, and their workers are more comfortable with the risks associated with striking. I just want to say that part is bullshit. Workers aren't more comfortable with the idea of striking. It's workers are realizing, I don't have a choice. I don't have a fucking choice in hell in terms of getting any financial independence or even making ends meet if I keep working, while seeing the wealthy people, the 1%ers, make all the money while I'm sitting here toiling night, day and night with some promise that one day things are going to work out. Okay, so there's one thing in terms of being comfortable with striking, and there's another thing when it comes to I have to strike it so my family can actually make out. So there's a totally different things in terms of what they're telling you. Moving right along. Labor disputes have caused workers, excluding teachers, to miss 633,000 days on the job this year through August, up from 440,000 in all of last year, according to the Labor Department. Including the wave of teacher strikes in the spring, there were more than 2 million days missed, the highest level since 2006. Just to preface this, you guys are striking, you're spending shitloads of hours off the time clock, you're on the picket line, you're foregoing the pain of bills, and you're accumulating more debt while you strike. When you do get a pay increase, you got to catch up because you spend what they say 2 million days missed. You spend so much time striking, then you're getting behind on your rent and your mortgage and your car payments while you're striking. Then you get a 3 or 4 or 5% increase in pay, which goes right back out the window. because you spend so much time striking, and amongst other things, which we're going to get into. So just realize the math doesn't add up, you guys, and you cannot start off with bad math and somehow have it work out. It ain't going to happen. Moving right along. They see the economy is growing, but their share of it is not, said Thomas A. Kochan, a professor of industrial relations at MIT Sloan School of Management. The economy has shifted the bargaining power toward labor. We have not seen that take place in years. Strikes and other labor-related stoppages had declined for decades as the share of workers belonging to unions fell. Okay, remember that for decades, the share of workers belonging to unions has failed dramatically. The number of major strikes involving more than 1,000 workers has dropped in recent decades. Labor disputes, which tend to rise during good economic times and fall during recessions, reached a record low in 2009. So, ever since 2009, at least, you guys, nobody cared about unions, and they still don't really. We're going to tell you why. You're told to get out there in the streets and strike. It ain't for better wages. It has more to do with saving the union itself. But anyway, listen to what they're saying and pay attention. Let me see here. The number of major strikes involving more than 1,000 workers has dropped in recent decades. Labor disputes, which tend to rise during good economic times and fall during recessions, reached to a record low in 2009. Just want to repeat that. Public sector unions suffered a blow in June when the Supreme Court ruled that government employees can't be compelled to pay union fees, which has cut into the coffers of the politically powerful unions. Again, public sector unions suffered a blow in June when the Supreme Court ruled that government employees can't be compelled to pay union fees, which has cut into the coffers of the politically powerful unions. Now, believe it or not, more people are employed in the government sector than in the private sector, according to what I understand. And if you don't get union dues from all of those additional people in the government sector who don't even want or care for a union, then that's a lot of money that you don't get access to, especially when campaigning or contributing to political parties and such. So the unions are going to be operating on some very slim budgets, especially as a result of government employees not the unions not getting access to the union dues paid by the coming from the checks of those government employees. Major problem, you guys. Now is the time to make sure we're delivering, said Kristen Sweeney, Deputy Organizing Director at the AFL-CIO. If you're not going to do it when there's 4% unemployment, when is it going to happen? I don't know if Kristen Sweeney really cares, you guys. She's a union boss, and they don't have to do the same things that you guys are doing. So they're just waiting for you to get out there and strike and bring home the bacon, whether or not the companies are profitable or not. Moving right along, wages have been growing at a fairly modest pace relative to the historically low unemployment rate. Non-supervisory private sector workers' average hourly earnings rose 2.8% in August from a year earlier, the Labor Department said. While that matches the best annual gain since 2009, it is well below the 4% rate of growth recorded in late 2000, when unemployment was similarly low, and stronger inflation in the past has eroded the spending power of the raises workers did receive. Okay, you got to pay attention to that. And stronger inflation in the past year has eroded the spending power of the raises workers did receive. So your wage gains are being wiped out as quickly as you can get them. Wage increases for factory workers have been slower than average. Hourly earnings for non-supervisory workers in metal manufacturing, which includes steel mills, rose 1.1% in August from a year earlier. Again, wage increases for factory workers have been slower than average. Hourly earnings for non-supervisory workers in metal manufacturing, which includes steel mill, rose 1.1% in August from a year earlier. But these are miserable increases. in some very key industries. You cannot come out ahead with those types of minuscule wage increases. A statewide teacher strike in West Virginia that started in February resulted in a 5% pay increase for teachers and changes to the state public employees insurance program, as well as increases for other state employees, more than state officials had previously offered. So 5% is not enough. Inflation is 3 to 4% minimum, more likely 8, 10% or something. So if you get a 5% increase, even if you're a teacher, you're still behind, okay? The math, guys, has to add up. If it doesn't add up, you're spinning your wheels. Moving right along, teachers who walked out over the next several months in Oklahoma, Kentucky, Arizona, Colorado, and North Carolina want some pay increases and pension plan changes, but not as much as unions had sought in many cases. Earlier this month, a union representing crane workers, crane operators in the Seattle area ended a 17-day strike after reaching a tentative agreement with a 17.8% increase in pay and benefits over 3 years. The union had rejected a 15% increase before it went on strike. I think if more people could get like 17%, they probably could start to make some ends meet, believe it or not. Moving right along. In an era of general prosperity, when companies are generating greater profits, unions see the need to share that and are more willing to take direct action to get it, said Gary Chason, a professor emeritus of industrial relations at Clark University. Just want to add to that, union bosses and the people who run the unions really aren't doing you guys a service at all. You should have more entrepreneurs. You should have more venture capitalists. Take a look at the relationship between unions, your union, and the company that you're employed by. You need to understand how that company makes profits. This is why I'm no longer in the union, no longer working for a company out there, anybody else except myself, because I know the unions typically don't have a clue in terms of where company profits are coming from and how to help those companies make money so employees can make money. Typically, unions just want you to do more, do less and get paid more. That's the bottom line. If employees can do less and get paid more, then they're loyal union people, members, right? But that's how you put companies out of business. You keep extracting more and more from your employer while giving less and less. That's a losing proposition. So anyway, you may want to give them a copy of the part of this article that talks about specifically company buybacks and dividend increases for shareholders. I think that's the key to understanding how the system really works right now, especially. Moving right along. In Chicago, roughly 5,000 housekeepers and other workers at 26 hotels went on strike September 7th, demanding increased health care coverage for newer employees, amongst other things. Unite Here Local 1 has argued that hotels are making record profits and should grant better benefits. That may not be true completely, mainly because, as I'm going to illustrate in the next section in this same podcast, it's easy to boost up profits and make it look like you're making more money or making more profits by financial engineering. If I buy back a shitload of my company's stock and if I increase dividend to my shareholders, it's going to look like I've increased my profits dramatically, when in actuality I didn't get any more consumer demand for my products and services, but I used financial engineering to make it look like I'm making more money. That's going to be further illustrated in detail in the next session. So pay attention to that. So believe it or not, you just can't assume that companies are making money because stocks go up or something. It's a little bit more going on than that. Moving right along, it was a good time to go on strike, said Tina Graham, a 60-year-old housekeeper who has worked at the Palmer House, a Hilton Worldwide Holdings Incorporated property, for 11 years and now earns $19.75 an hour. She said the union wants year-round health care coverage for workers typically laid off in the winter before being called back in the spring. The union also wants to cut the number of rooms workers like Ms. Graham needs to clean per shift to 14 from 16. So the consolation that the union is giving One of them is I get to clean 2 less rooms per shift. Instead of 16, I clean 14. So that's what you get. That's your contribution to helping the company stay profitable, your employer. Moving right along, a Hilton spokeswoman said the company is committed to negotiating in good faith and values its employees. Michael D'Angelo, vice president of labor relations at Hyatt Hotels Corporation, said his company, also a target of the Chicago strike, was disappointed that Unite Here chose to walk out when negotiations are ongoing. Mr. D'Angelo said the company offers workers competitive wages and good benefits, including health care and retirement contributions. Hyatt has a long history of strong labor relations, he said. A Marriott International Incorporated spokesman said the company reached a contract agreement with the union on Thursday but declined to provide specifics. The union said the agreement covers 1,200 workers. In Michigan, highway construction projects across the state are stalled because the Michigan Infrastructure and Transportation Association, which represents contractors, has locked out heavy equipment operators. Mike Nystrom, a spokesman for the Contractors Association, said the Operators Engineers Union has turned down a 14.4% increase in total compensation. They self-authored a contract and have put in it everything they've ever hoped for and wanted, Mr. Nystrom said. I think this is hilarious. When you self-author a contract of your own and unilaterally try to impose it on the company, you better have a lot of leverage or it's going to have a lot of people that are going to be on the streets looking for a replacement job. Moving right along, but that is funny, you guys. Self-authored contract where you throw in the kitchen sink and you expect the company to sign it. Moving right along, Dan McKernan, a spokesman for the Local 234 of the International Union of Operating Engineers, which represents more than 1,000 affected heavy equipment operators, said the union wants individual contractors to agree not to hire non-union subcontractors. He said that the tight labor market has strengthened the union's hand. In a different economy, these contractors would have gone right out to get people to fill these positions. Mr. McKernan said they just don't have that ability right now. Again, don't get confused, you guys. When there's a lack of skilled people, that's because corporate America didn't put any resources into training people and educating people for the jobs. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean you have a lot of leverage. That just means that for the time being, you're seeing the repercussions of a lack of investment in vocational training programs and other types of training programs that make you more suited, that make more people more capable of picking up the slack when the economy starts moving, when the economy starts booming finally, or moving right along. I don't even want to say booming because it's a misnomer. Moving right along, officials with the United Steelworkers say steel giants ArcelorMittal and U.S. Steel are asking for concessions rather than sharing profits, which have been helped by tariffs on foreign metals. Speaking of trade tariffs, you guys, President Donald Trump's waves new tariffs on China now apply to over $250 billion of Chinese goods, roughly half the amount the country sells to the United States. So again, half the goods coming into the United States are now going to be more pricier. So your meager wage increases, again, are going to be eaten up by new tariffs imposed on these imports coming into the United States. Your gadgets, your agricultural products are going up. Your what else? Your gas is going up. Everything is going up, and your wage increases is going to be totally eaten up by all of the additional expenses. Okay, the latest round affects thousands of products bought by U.S. consumers, including hundreds of millions of dollars of furniture and electronics imports. The U.S. tariffs imposed earlier in the year mostly hit industrial goods. Meanwhile, contracts for both companies expired September 1st, but companies are asking workers to pay more for health care. U.S. Steel said its offer contains significant wage increases and choice between quality benefit plans, and that the two sides are continuing to work toward a mutually agreeable conclusion. ArcelorMittal reported health care costs per employee are up 78% since 2008, and the company said it is working to reach an agreement with the union. In Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, 53 workers at Four Roses Bourbon Distillery and Bottling Plant have been on strike since September 7th. Jeffrey Royalty, a distillery worker and president of United Food and Commercial Workers Local 10D, said the sticking point is proposed changes to paid sick day plans for new hires, a claim that we are proposing a two-tier sick leave policy that discriminates against new hires is not true, the company said. The union says the plan for new hires is inferior and is in fact a two-tier proposal. I'm just a country gentleman, but I don't need a dictionary to tell me that, said Mr. Royalty. I think Mr. Royalty should also admit that if he's a country gentleman and doesn't know very much about the details, or he wants to give us the impression that he's just a country gentleman, he needs to really confess up also that if you're not an entrepreneur or venture capitalist, you need to go get one, because unions are on the losing end. They're not understanding at all where companies make money and how they make money and how to help them make more money so that money can be shared, like employees used to get stock options in the companies, and you work harder when you have stock options or ownership as compared to just signing a union contract where you sit back and expect to do less and get paid more. It's a big difference. Moving right along. Now, this is really revealing. Hopefully we can cover it all. Listen up. Share buybacks help lift corporate earnings. Tax cut fueled repurchases are boosting per share profits from Apple to Union Pacific and lifting the stock market to new heights. Last December's tax overhaul is boosting corporate profits in more ways than one. The legislation lowered companies' tax bills, improving their earnings, but the change has also helped them fund record stock buybacks, a move that makes their results appear even better by boosting their per-share earnings they highlight for investors. S&P 500 companies bought back a record $189 billion of their own shares in the first quarter, and a similar number, if not more, is expected for the second quarter, according to S&P Dow Jones indices. By contrast, S&P 500 buybacks totaled no more than $137 billion in any of the 6 quarters before the tax overhaul. Stock buybacks make profits appear better by boosting per-share earnings. I'll repeat this. Stock buybacks make profits appear better by boosting per-share earnings, a metric investors frequently use to justify a company's stock price. Buybacks reduce a company's share count, spreading the profits across fewer shares. As a result, companies can report a bigger percentage increase in per-share earnings than profit results alone may show. Among the more aggressive companies in buying back stock, Apple Incorporated repurchased 112.8 million shares in the quarter that ended in June, contributing 5 cents to its earnings of $2.34 a share. Union Pacific Corporation repurchased about 4% of its shares in the second quarter, helping earnings per share climb substantially faster than net income. Thanks to buybacks, Southwest Airline Company's quarterly per share earnings rose even though its profit fell from a year earlier. So again, if this is not revealing, I don't know what is. This airline actually didn't make as much money until it factored in the amount of stock that it bought back. So in other words, you can have declining customer revenue as a result of people less people using your airline, but if you buy back enough shares in the corporation and the airline, now all of a sudden you look more profitable, right? So again, the general accounting standards or the agency that's responsible for accounting shouldn't let this scam be perpetuated in these industries. I think it's the FASB is supposed to be responsible for making sure that the accounting doesn't mislead people, but they are misleading people, and you guys are falling for it. Moving right along, for the S&P 500, per share earnings in the second quarter rose about 25% from a year ago, a full 2 percentage points faster than net income, according to data from Thomson Reuters. It would be fair to assume it is all from buybacks, said David Aurelio, senior research analyst at Thomson Reuters. The higher per-share earnings have helped lead investors to pay more for stocks. The S&P 500 index is trading at record highs after gaining about 10% this year. So again, investors are paying more for these stocks, even though it's financial engineering that's making the stocks go up. So somebody's getting duped. Investors need to realize what they're paying a premium for, said Howard Silverblatt, senior index analyst at S&P Dow Jones Indices. I agree with him. If I can use accounting and financial engineering to make my company look more profitable, then somebody's getting deceived, okay? In all, dozens of large companies bought back 4% or more of their shares outstanding in the 12 months ended in June, according to data from S&P Dow Jones Indices. The resulting boost to earnings may seem small in any given quarter, but they add up. Apple's buybacks also added 8 cents a share in the March quarter, for instance, and companies also have started big new buyback programs suggesting earnings per share increases will continue. The buybacks aren't necessarily done for the express purpose of increasing earnings per share earnings, rather. Many companies say they want to return excess capital to shareholders. Others tend to offset new shares issued to employees as compensation. So this is a big lie as well, because this is the whole purpose of buying back stocks and increasing dividends. You want to reward investors. You don't care about employees. You don't care about customers. What you care about is investors. When the going gets tough, if I'm going to keep you invested in my company, I'm going to do everything to reward investors, not so much customers, not so much employees. So make sure you guys could read between the lines, okay? The per-share earnings increases generated by stock buybacks are low quality, inflating results without underlying substance, said Gregory Milano, chief executive of Fortuna Advisors, a financial consulting firm that has examined buyback trends. It has less value. So I think a lot of you union members, you need to give Gregory Milano, chief executive of Fortuna Advisors, you better give him a call and have him talk to your union bosses, because obviously he's the only one that doesn't have his head up his ass regarding these issues and how things really work. Moving right along, companies play down the buyback effect. They say their earnings are strong even without buybacks, and that while the buybacks add to per-share earnings, the effect is clear to investors and baked into the analyst earnings estimates that drive stock prices. No, it's a scam. Okay. Apple pointed to its past statements that its earnings growth is accelerating and that tax overhaul enables us to deploy our global cash more efficiently, leading it to put forward plans to create 20,000 U.S. jobs and invest $350 billion in U.S. operations over the next 5 years. Show me the money. Show me the results. That's what I say. Union Pacific's buybacks contributed 9 cents to its second quarter per share earnings, helping that metric to climb 37%, while net income rose 29% from a year ago. The railroad's finance chief, Robert Knight, said the buybacks represent the return of excess cash to our shareholders and are consistent with guidance we provided to the analyst community. Southwest Airlines' second quarter net income, excluding items, declined 2.1% from a year ago. On a per-share basis, however, it rose 2.4%, in part because the company has repurchased 28.3 million shares in the past year. Southwest said its per-share earnings growth has been driven primarily by the strong financial performance of our robust network. Sure, right, and rainbows flow out of my asshole, by the way. As the economic cycle grinds on, Mr. Milano said companies may find it harder to show earnings growth even as they face increased pressure from shareholders to do so, and so buybacks start to look more attractive. That's very important to remember. The buyback effect adds to the earnings boost companies are already seeing because the U.S. cut its corporate tax rate to 21% from 35%. Union Pacific's second quarter effective rate, for example, declined to 22.1% from 37.5% a year ago before the tax overhaul. At some companies, the tax cut has accounted for half or more of reported profits. So again, tax cuts, stock buybacks, and dividend increases are doing more to account for profits rather than consumer demand for their products and services. Okay, moving right along, the benefits to per-share earnings from buybacks can help a company's result compare more favorably to Wall Street forecasts. In each of the past 2 quarters, big buybacks by Cisco Systems Incorporated increases adjusted per-share earnings by 2%. by 2 cents each time the networking giant's total results surpass analyst consensus expectations by a penny. Cisco said its buybacks are incorporated into the earnings per share guidance it provides to analysts. This is not a quality of earnings issue. It's inaccurate to state that we have otherwise missed EPS targets, a company representative said. Experts say when companies do guide analysts on their buyback plans, the effect on estimates is imprecise. For instance, buybacks earlier in a quarter make a bigger difference in per share earnings because such results are calculated using average shares outstanding. Companies, though, don't typically forecast the timing of buybacks. In the first quarter, just after the tax overhaul, a record 78% of S&P 500 companies reported earnings above analyst expectations, according to FactSet. The second quarter then beat that record with 80%. So again, financial engineering and such makes it look like profits are coming in when they're not. Unions are not really being honest with members in terms of where the money is coming from and how these companies actually make money. So you just keep in mind, you guys need to learn more about how your employers are making money. Anyway, as I like to say, keep your eyes and ears open to stay safe out there. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.